Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. Where yesterday he gave us some wonderful details on the names of Hashem and some intricacies there. It was beautiful. You can check that out in the playlist. It'll be yesterday, April 18th. But today, I think we're jumping back into his 199 title. So let's just jump right in. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. You're live on the air. We're going to turn the class over to you. So good to be with you. I see Rabbi Jones has joined us. And yeah, take it away, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Dan. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you enjoyed last night's. And now tonight is going to be interesting because I was thinking of getting a little deeper into where we start, but there's too much depth there. So I'm going to share with you how it's the problem. So can you see on your screen the list? No? Okay. Let's see. How I do that? Here it is. Okay. There it is. So you see it now, right? Okay. So so we're up to number 42 in that list. Deuteronomy 5, chapter 8, verse 10, it says, say blessings of grace after meals. So this one idea raised so many questions. I'm just gonna, I don't even know what to do with it, but I'll explain the simple. First of all, this is where we're told to say thank you to God. And he says in three words, V'yachalta, you'll eat, V'savata, you become satisfied, V'yirachta, and you'll bless. So that's those three words give us the idea that we should thank God after we eat. And it's Barakta, the last word, bless, that's to say blessings. I don't know where grace comes from. I don't know what grace means. Sometimes it says just say grace after meals, like, just called grace after meals. I don't know where they got the name grace. It should be benedictions after meals if you're going to go in English. So that's maybe a mystery that maybe they were addressing some of the mysteries I've uncovered, but you can understand that, say thanks to God for providing. You can understand that, but when you think about it, it becomes less understandable because don't you normally say thank you before you partake? This is definitely particularly saying after you're finished eating and satisfied, you became satisfied. One of the rules of it is that if you didn't eat enough, then you don't say these blessings. You might say other blessings, and it has to be like a full meal, so that this particular blessing of grace after meals is considered only relevant when you've sat down to a full meal, including bread. Bread is the staple that identifies it as a full meal. And I don't know what they do. I think I do know what they do. They don't say the grace if you're living in China and you're eating the rice. Well, they don't say there's another blessing that comes later. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So because God said, say this blessing or say a blessing after you became eat and became satisfied. So the rabbis came along and said, well, if you're going to say a blessing after you're satisfied already, so certainly you should say thank you and thank God before you start to eat, which what everybody does is natural. Whenever you want something or get something from somebody, you say thank you before you use it up. Before somebody gives you a gift, you say thank you immediately before you spend the money or break the object that they gave you, used it so much that it's broken, and now you're saying thank you. You say thank you right away. So but it's clear in the verse that you have to become satisfied, and then you say the blessing. So it's weird in that way. But from that they got that all the blessings, and this is the source of making all the blessings. We have lots of blessings that we say. In fact, there's an acceptance in an established routine by King David already to say 100 blessings a day, 100 blessings a day. And some people go out of their way to make sure that they say 100 blessings a day by partaking of extra foods in order to say an extra blessing, or smelling things. There's blessings on smelling different things that are pleasant. There's blessings on seeing, you know, parts of nature like say the Rockies. If you see a big mountain, there'd be a blessing you see on that. On seeing the ocean because it's so huge, there's a blessing on that. On hearing thunder and lightning, there's separate blessings for each of them, and so there's a lot of details, and all these blessings are composed and introduced by the rabbis, and all based on this idea. So I always want to make sure that you understand the difference between what God said and what the rabbi said. Not that we're denigrating what the rabbi said. We hold them in high regard. Whatever they said, we try and keep. It becomes another level of authority on us, and we try and conform to everything they say, just like we try and conform to what God says. But it's a different level of responsibility, a different level of seriousness. So, for example, if you're ever in doubt whether you should do something that the Torah, that God said to do, so you do it just to be sure. If you're ever in doubt about something the rabbi said, so there you don't have to do it because it's not for sure that they meant that. And there's other number of other leniencies. So this whole area of blessings is huge and also very difficult for me because the nature of the blessings, the different ones they composed, and when to say it, and how to say it, and how much you have to eat, and on which item. There's a blessing for fruits, there's a blessing for vegetables, there's a blessing for bread, as I said, there's a blessing of um, um, not bread, like grains that are not bread. For example, you could take flour, wheat flour, rye flour, and make a cake. So cake doesn't, it's the same ingredient as water and flour. That's the major ingredients. But because you've added eggs and sugar and whatever, so that takes it out of the category of bread. It's no longer the staple. And there's a separate blessing for that. And rice falls into that category. So it can get very complicated. And I've studied it. I will not say that I'm an expert. I'm confounded in many places. So there's a lot of detail. And that itself is a question. Why there's so many details? And I'm developing some thoughts, some themes that can maybe answer why this area is so complicated. But certainly the idea of um, uh, blessings comes from this instruction to for now, let's say thank God for what He's given you. And I'll leave it at that because this is not meant to be a full detailed analysis. So we're going to go on to the next one, which is hear the shofar. Now, in hear the shofar, I've got I've got a 45-minute presentation that I do on the shofar because of something I discovered. So the shofar is, I brought one along. This is a shofar. You step back here so you can get it. It's a ram's horn or sheep's horn, or it could be an antelope's horn, any kosher animal except for a cow that has a horn. Cow's horns are a different substance, so they don't qualify. Um, we blow it. It's a very simple, primitive instrument. You're not allowed to make it any more refined. If there's a hole in the body, like a flute or something that you could make different notes, that invalidates it. It's just got to be one hole at the tip there to blow into, and it comes out this end, and that's it. And I'm going to blow you for now. I'm a good shofar blower. Some people call me a very good shofar blower. I'm going to give you an example. My wife's going to come running in a minute because she hates when I make that sound. That goes on. Are you, what? Are you kidding me? Really? Okay. There she is. I can send you the. Okay. Okay. So, well, we're not going to repeat it. I'll have to get a recording of it, play it. But It goes, I can make the sound like this. It goes, toot, so straight, one tone sound. And then there's three intermediate sounds, toot, toot, toot. And then there's 9 really short sounds. And then there's another long sound at the end. So, and there's a whole, I have a 45-minute presentation. This mitzvah is to be done on Rosh Hashanah, on the day of the new year, today in our times, and we celebrate 2 days of the new year, even though it's only identified as one day in the Torah, because there is always necessarily a doubt about which day it will be, because it was the duty of the court, the high court, to declare the new moon that this now starts the new month. And that, to do that, they were waiting for witnesses to come and say, we saw the new moon. And so sometimes they come one day. It had to be 1 or 2 days, because every month has to be 29 or 30 days. So if there were no witnesses came, it was cloudy, nobody saw it, nobody bothered to come. So then by the second day of possibility, they would declare that day the new moon and start the new month. And if it was the first month of the year, so that's the holy day. It's a holy day of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, and you can't. It's sort of a sabbatical day. You don't do any work except for cooking. You can cook, um, and it's a day of judgment, a day of verdict. I like to call it a day where God is deciding how to go forward with us, and so is a judgment and a serious day. And this shofar is meant to wake us up to that fact. And there's a lot of mystical illusions associated with the shofar that people discuss and talk about. But what I discovered through the shofar was something that was very instrumental in understanding creativity and a lot of other things. And that is, you'll notice there was 3 types of sounds. There was the long single blast, there was the 3 intermediates, and then there was the 9 really short ones when you go back to the long blast. Well, that's not the 3 kinds of blasts. That's not all of it. They're in the intermediates. There's got to be 3 of those intermediates, and in the really short ones, there's got to be 3 times 3 of those really short ones, 9. You can have a little more, but like that's the kind of minimum. And so it's built on the number 3. And in fact, the word for blowing the shofar in the Torah is trua. That's what it's called. And I think it came, the nature of the sound came from that word, because in original Hebrew, I believe, they trilled the R. So it was trua. All the R's were trilled. Trua. Now, in order to trill an R, if you listen to yourself do that, you'll see you kind of have to make a 3R sound. So the very sound itself, trill, to say the trill, it requires a sort of a 3 gurgles on your tongue of some way. So it's 3s. And what happened was, I was teaching some people the rules of how to blow the shofar, and as I was going over those rules, then it hit me how many 3s were involved in the 3 types of sounds, and we do it 3 times during the year, and you have to blow it 3 times. Not 3 times a year. I'm sorry. We blow it 3 times. Each of those 3 sounds, again, it's a set, and there's 3 sets, and then there's 3 sets of sets, and so there was like 3s on 3s on 3s. It was all built on 3s. Even the word trua was built on 3. So what's with the 3s? And I said, well, Rambam, when I was learning it, Rambam talks about the shofar in the laws of repentance, and the laws of returning to God, and says that we don't know what the shofar, it's given to us an instruction by God. We can't say for certain what it's all about, but there's a hint. There's a hint in the verse. It says, wake up, you sleepyheads. You're getting judged. Wake up. So it's relates to the day of judgment. Well, so I said, I got all these threes. Why would these threes wake me up? What's the connection? And I didn't find anybody discuss that. So I started investigating, and I found out that I went back to Genesis, to Bereshit, to the first book, creation. And so, what is it about threes that would excite us, that would sort of hint or resonate with us, sort of subconsciously? And so, I'm looking for something that would do that, and I'm going through and I'm reading the story of creation, and I noticed that the word create, which is in Latin "creato ex nihilo," to create out of nothing, is bara in the Hebrew. It's the second word in the Torah. Bereshit bara. In the beginning, God created. The created word is the second word, second Hebrew word in the Torah. So that's the first. Obviously, that's the first time the word occurred. You would think that in the story of creation that word would occur many, many times, but it doesn't. It only occurred. It doesn't occur again after that first usage until day 5, and where it occurs then, because in between God makes the sky and the stars and the sun and the moon and the animals and the plants and makes all these things. Never used the word bara. Never used the word create. But when it comes to animals, that's the first time. The second time that God uses again the word created animals, and then the last time, it's only 6 times used in the whole story of creation. The last time is at the very end, summing up, and on the day of Shabbos, the sabbatical. The last 3 words are Asher bara Elohim lasos. So bara Elohim is the third and second last word of that story of creation, and bara Elohim, the third last and second last words there exactly match the second and third words in the beginning. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. So it's like brackets of the whole story. There's bara Elohim, and that's the 6th time that bara was used. So we have the first time at the beginning, we have the second time on the animals, and we have the last time, the 6th time, summing it up, or talking about creating the Shabbos. And in between, there's one verse that has the name bara, the word bara, 3 times in the same verse. And that is the verse about creating man. It says, the Lord created man in his own image. B'Tselem Elohim baroso, in the image of the Lord, he created him. Zachar nekeva barosam, male and female, he created them. So here you have a word created, bara, that was so unusual because it's creating out of nothing. That's what it means. And you're telling me the story of creating out of nothing, and yet you only use it 6 times, and 3 times of that, half of that is all in one verse with man. That you're creating man out of nothing, but not everything else. So, making a long story short, it seemed to me that in the beginning, God created the Big Bang, which is what scientists tell us. That's all the energy, and which resulted into matter. So that's the original creation, that you created something physical, is a physical universe. Now you got to put the pieces in place. You make hydrogen atoms and helium atoms and different kinds of atoms and use them together to make molecules and so on, to go through the billion-year process, whatever it is you want to call it, 7 days, you want to call it billions of years, I don't care. But it's the putting together of all these basic building blocks that were created out of nothing, and you don't need to create anything out of nothing after that until you get to animals. And there's something new in animals that you just can't find a life force. Life force is not physical. You can take a living animal and shock its heart and make it clinically dead. All the parts are still there. You can't bring it back to life. Something's missing. So there's some new creation there in animals that give it autonomy and it can move around and so on. And that's the new creation of animals. And then when it comes to man, it seems there are 3 new ingredients into us that didn't exist before. And that's why 3 resonates with us, because that's what we're made of. 3 new things. So that's the short form. And all that came from the shofar, because and that's why the shofar resonates with our soul, with who we are, because it speaks, subconsciously, it just sort of resonates. It makes those tones tingle inside, deep inside. You can't really put your finger on it, and that's what they're designed to do. And then, of course, as always in Jewish literature or in Jewish practice, whatever you're doing, it has an effect. But then when you study it and just find the reasons how it affects you, then you start to really build the case. And so I have a deeper analysis of that, but that's the short form of it. And that's why it's so important to hear the shofar. And I think that should apply to everybody, because it's just waking us up. Every human. This is the creation of humans, not a creation of Jews. Humans are composed of three new things that didn't exist before humanity was introduced to the universe. So it speaks to everybody. And yeah, you were going to say, Dan? Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. So there's a whole thing there. Now, 10 days after the first day of the year, we have Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year because we get atonement through. So when we had the temple and there was the service of the high priest that only he could perform, and it was his day, there had to be a high priest. If something happened to the high priest, which could be he got an accident and heart attack, got sick, couldn't do it, or even if he became impure, which is he came across a dead body or something like that. So there's a number of things that might invalidate him from performing the service. There was always a standby. There's a guy ready to step into his shoes, so to speak, and take over, because only the high priest office could do it, and that gained atonement for everybody at that time. And that's what I was speaking about yesterday on that day of the holiest service. So there was a new zeitgeist. God, using the power of infinity, would just introduce a new wrinkle, things, and create a whole new relationship with the world. And so it started off everybody could start on a new footing. So because of that, we have two extra instructions to do on Yom Kippur. Well, one to do, one not to do, and they really sound like they're mirror images of each other. Fast on Yom Kippur is number 44, and do not eat or drink on Yom Kippur, number 45, which is really the same thing. So let me address that a little bit. There's a number of instructions in the Torah that say the same thing in positive and negative ways. And this is one example. If you're not eating or drinking Yom Kippur, you're obviously fasting. And if you're fasting, you're obviously not eating or drinking. So it's the same thing. If you're keeping one instruction, you're by default keeping the other. And if you're breaking one instruction, you're by default breaking the other. So why have two instructions? So the halachic answer, the traditional answer, is that when you have a negative, there can be, or there usually is, a physical reaction by the court to someone who would do that on purpose, witnessed, and with witnesses testifying that they defied the word of God, and most things are punishable by lashing. Lashes, 39 stripes. If they're physically able to take it, they would examine whether doctors would have to validate that the person could take that kind of pain, and if not, they shrunk it down to what they could take. But it would only happen if they were warned, and the witnesses were there and say, "Look, if you do this, we're going to go to court and report you, and they're going to punish you." And you'd say, "I don't care. I'm going to do it. Even please do that. I want to do this." So he's defying God. He's defying the rule. He's defying the society he lives in, and that's why he gets punished. Somebody says, "I can't help it. I gotta eat. I gotta eat. I can't help it." So you don't punish that guy. I mean, he did wrong, but you can't punish him. He didn't feel that he was capable of doing it. So that's clarifies. I wanted to clarify some. Understand that many people criticize the Old Testament being very punitive. Well, you have to you're serious. These are serious things. So you want to lay out the repercussions of ramifications of doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. But when it comes, when the push comes to shove, actually, um, no punishments were meted out unless the guy was really defying the whole society. Um, and That's very unusual. The Now, why positive and negative? Positives didn't get punished. If you committed if you didn't obey, you didn't keep on his positive instruction, then your repentance, the way you could make up for that, is by bringing a burnt offering to the temple, and always doing tshuva, always saying sorry to God, um, reviewing what you did, realizing that it was stupid, it was a mistake, resolving not to do it again, and saying this aloud, taking steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's really all you need to do, and then you're forgiven. And it says that many times in the Torah that you do this and you'll be forgiven. Again, I didn't yet answer why two mitzvahs, one positive, one negative. And my personal answer is that that's the way we teach our children. When we want them to stay out of harm, don't do that because you're going to get hurt. Then you say don't. When you want them to get a benefit, you say do this because brush your teeth. You'll have healthy teeth. You'll feel fresher. Your teeth will shine. You'll look better. You're giving them a benefit. So usually, when it's a positive thing, it's a benefit you want to confer on someone. And when it's a negative thing, it's usually you're trying to keep them from hurting themselves. Sometimes they're both true. If you do it this way, you'll get benefit. If you do it the other way, you're going to harm yourself. Not only won't you get the benefit, but you'll actually damage yourself. You'll take something away from what you had. So that, to me, it may be explained why some instructions have both versions, positive and negative. And in Yom Kippur, you might be able to understand that in the sense that it's the holy, traditionally, even non-religious Jews, they all come to the synagogue in Yom Kippur. I remember when I was a young fellow taking my accounting courses, I was in Windsor, Ontario, and I was going to a school there that allowed me to take all the courses I needed in 12 months. So I was away from the Jewish community. Wasn't many indigenous, let's say, Jewish community in Windsor. I was on campus, only went there to go to school, and I didn't have friends in the community or anything like that. I was just busy getting those courses done. There were a lot of Jewish people that came to do that, and not religious people, but they wanted to get these courses done so they become accountants, and so and it was a very intense program because you're doing everything in 12 months. So they didn't want to miss a class. So there was a class on Yom Kippur. So they said, I'm going. I said, you're going on Yom Kippur? He says, yeah, I'm not eating, but I'm going. So there was just absolutely unimaginable for most of these guys to eat anything on Yom Kippur, even though they're not religious. They don't keep Shabbos. They don't keep kosher. They don't keep all the things but Yom Kippur's drummed into them. That's the holiest day of the year. This one day you're going to have respect for God, acknowledge his existence. They would not eat. No way. But they went to class. They took notes. They went all the other things. Did say that there's different levels of performance, I guess. And but they had something that they weren't willing to give up. They had a community thing that this is my people. This is what we do, and I think that's a line in the sand that you don't cross. That's a positive thing you have, and you don't want to give that up. So that's the positive thing that they kept by not eating, by fasting on Yom Kippur. What they didn't gain was they did lose all the other things. There's so much other holiness in Yom Kippur that you can get by going to synagogue. You don't eat, you don't drink, you don't have time for that. You're in synagogue, you're praying all day, you're examining your behavior over the whole year, and you're trying to figure out how you can improve it and so on. So many things you can get to. You can harm yourself and you can benefit yourself. So that's the two aspects of it. So
Wow.
that's how I explain the two, the negatives and the positives, uh, and um, and Yom Kippur itself, which follows Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the day of verdict of God's making up his mind, but they were told, he waits 10 days. If you're really absolutely righteous, so he'll seal you, sign you up for a good year, and go on to the next guys, so to speak. And if you're really bad, they'll sign you right up. Not going to go well for you this year, and I got to go. Most people are in the middle. There's some good, there's some bad. So let me give them 10 days to really think about it and see what they want to do, and then the final day is Yom Kippur. That's the most serious day, and so by that time, everybody does a little better, and so it's gets them a better judgment than they would have had without the process. So you need a 10-day process, and there's 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, which are sabbatical days, and Yom Kippur is a sabbatical day, and in between there's extra prayers we say on a regular, although it's a regular day, and so on. So it's 10 day, and then shortly after, 5 days later, you go into Sukkot.
Now,
Which you're living.
Rabbi, I've heard that for B'nai Noach that we're a one and done scenario, and that Rosh Hashanah we're one and done, and we don't have that time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That it's not applicable to B'nai Noach specifically. Any comments on that?
Yeah. There's no. I'm glad you mentioned, because I don't want to say that you have to observe Yom Kippur. It's it's an option. Now, for Jews, it's not an option because it's considered like I'm you're the lead guys, and you're setting the pace. So I'm giving you all these extra rules and so on. So, and I'm giving you help. So take advantage of it. But it looks, and the world goes on. People continue. They don't even know the Yom Kippur is come and gone. So they don't have to observe it because everybody's getting judged all the time. But there's a process and an opportunity to take note of something. If you're in the people that's assigned the task of doing that and you don't do it, you're really at fault. If you're a normal guy, so okay, I'm not faulting you. You just go through your life. I'll deal with you uh, in ways that will guide you. But you may not be aware of this special time. But if you are and you want to take advantage of it, be my guest. I got room for everybody. So I don't see any downside to acknowledging it, and I'm going to do that with all the holidays and say that all these
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah. I always encourage B'nai Noach to do an accounting of the soul before Rosh Hashanah. To reflect where you're at, Hespon Hanefesh, and make sure you know where you're at, and do that accounting of the soul, and
There's a
pace yourself annually based on that. It just makes a difference. Robbie, did you have any question for Rabbi?
No, it was clear. I have like cleansed my ask forgiveness and put it into like a set of forest trees to just release um, my sins and just give it back to God in the forest. I've done that before, and it made me feel better. I don't know if that's anything resembling what I should do, but that's what I did.
Ah, well, if it's something you consciously are aware of that you can ameliorate, if it's a wrong that you've done to somebody and you can right the wrong, then it kind of falls on your shoulders to right the wrong. But when it comes to things that you cannot specifically ameliorate, yeah, don't carry the baggage forward. Yeah, and this is the whole point of Rosh Hashanah being the new year, is that you end up leaving last year behind and make plans to go forward, and the more you break down your life in that way and you pace yourself and you have a target. I mean, the surest way to go nowhere is to aim nowhere. And a lot of people just float through life like they're a leaf on a river. And reality is we're human beings blessed with a mind. I think Rabbi Schwartz talked a little bit about the three connected parts and unique parts in creation of man, and they play such a factor. That was a beautiful thing to share. I'm sorry we weren't able to hear the shofar. For some reason, it didn't come across the speaker recording, and obviously you were blowing it. I could. Your wife obviously heard it plain as day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it for tonight. It's been very interesting. And I
We're
hope
continuing same time tomorrow night.
we're up to 46, which is segues from that too. So we're good.
Okay, so that's our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. We will be back tomorrow night, Hashem willing, same time. That's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you want to participate in the Zoom, I do have a registration link, or you can send me a personal message on Facebook, and I will share the Zoom link, and you're welcome to join us live in the class and weigh in. It always is more interesting when more people are involved. So, yeah, you're welcome, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Okay.